Hello and welcome to Monkey Broadcast, our monthly review and discussion show with me, the Johnny Monkey.
And me, Sven the Crusader.
So here we are in June, the month of E3. So let's forget this crappy intro and go straight to
Q&A!
As the title implies, this is where we answer a question sent to us by our fans and subscribers. If you would like us to answer your questions, please send them to us via YouTube PMs or leave a comment in this video. Our first question comes from Trainman666 and his question is,
Are you familiar with the old school game Lemmings? If so, what was your favourite stage, music, track and or ability? Or did you just like the fact that you could make the cute creatures literally blow themselves up?
Is it any surprise at this point that I've actually played that?
I only played it once when I was very, very young, so you should probably go ahead with this.
Problem is, I'm of the exact same thing. I remember it slightly better than you probably do, but only slightly. Slightly enough that I can't give an opinion.
Yeah, the problem was, I think I played it like when I was 6, it was at a friend's house, but the thing is, what happened was, I found it amusing when I kind of made a mistake and they blew themselves up, but then I felt kind of sad because they all kept blowing themselves up over and over and over again, and I started to feel a little guilty, so I never went back to play it.
I don't know what it says about me as a kid, but I kept doing it just to see that happen.
I was probably just as odd. I mean, for crying out loud, I was feeling guilty over Lemmings dying.
Well, I'd like to think that I'm slightly saner than the psychopath my kid self was. This is... Okay, fun fact. This is the kid who found on a game download collection pack Doom and enjoyed it. At 6.
Yeah. Why don't we move away from that and just answer another question, shall we?
Yeah, let's. Our next question comes from Owlflame, and he asks, what are both you and Sven's opinions / theories about the Zelda timeline?
Oh boy. Get some coffee, folks. You're gonna be here for a while.
Well, if you have an essay planned, I'm just gonna pull out a favorite quote of mine from a favorite reviewer of mine that you probably know by now. The Zelda timeline is f***ing on a bike.
Yeah, I can imagine you feeling that. I mean, I actually don't mind the idea of a Zelda timeline. I just wish Nintendo would make up their f***ing minds about it. Some executives keep insisting there is no timeline and all the games are standalone adventures and everything like that. And meanwhile, some directors are insisting that there's a timeline. And recently, Ennio Morricone, to add to the controversy, came out and said, and I swear this is a little quote from him, there is a timeline, we keep it on our computer, but we don't tell anyone because we want the audience to figure it out for themselves. And to be honest, when I saw that quote, I just felt like screaming, why don't you just bloody present it? Do you realise how many arguments and flame wars you could solve if you just did it all?
Yeah, it's kind of like the trope, just eat Gilligan. There's a simple solution to the entire problem, but they don't do it because why? Well, I don't know. They want to boost sales or some weird crap like that.
I mean, to be fair, it does get fans up in discussion, but there are other ways to do it, frankly.
Yeah, at this point, Nintendo, just eat Gilligan.
But if you want my actual opinions on the timeline, I do have my own vague theory based on something that has been confirmed, etc. So I'm just going to give a bare bones structure so that I don't bore everyone to death.
Okay, now the first ever game in the timeline is the Minish Cap. Miyamoto confirmed that the Minish Cap was set before Ocarina of Time, so yeah, generally we can assume that that's the first ever Zelda game. Recently in an interview, they revealed that Skyward Sword is also going to take place before Ocarina of Time, although whether that takes place earlier, we don't know. Then it's Ocarina of Time, and then because of the really freaky time paradox that happened to that game, the timeline splits, one of which goes into Wind Waker, Phantom Hourglass, and Spirit Tracks. And on the other side, well, there's a second timeline with Twilight Princess, and yes, I know what I said in the VGT, and it turned out I made a mistake, although, in my defense, Nintendo changed their minds halfway through development, so it wasn't entirely my fault. But yeah, after Twilight Princess, it's A Link to the Past, followed by the Oracle games, and no, game trailers are completely wrong, they're not in separate timelines. What people forget is that those two games can be joined into one big adventure. In fact, there's a secret ending, which makes the connection to the next game, Link's Awakening, actually quite obvious. And then after Link's Awakening, you've got the two NES games, Zelda 1 and Zelda 2. And I'm actually quite surprised thinking about it that we haven't had a game that's set after Zelda 2, but what the heck.
But yeah, that's all I'm going to say about it. If you want any more detailed opinions on the timeline and what my reasoning is behind it, send it a YouTube PM. I'm not willing to discuss it here.
Fair enough. Even though I'm never going to go there because, like I said, I think the Zelda timeline is basically hogwash. Balderdash. Insert creative term for just plain batch on a sandwich here.
Fair enough. Alrighty, our next question comes from SpyroCrash19 and he asks,
what do you think it would be like if Nintendo released a Pokemon game that, instead of using the traditional turn-based system, used a real-time system like that used in the Tales of series of games?
Okay, as much as I like Tails, that scares me, because that is a lot of pricks to control.
Yeah, to be fair, I don't think he was suggesting that you controlled all of them.
Well, if it was reasonable, like, say, controlling 3 of them at a time in the Tails system, that might work, but if you're controlling all 6, God help me.
Yeah, it could easily just be something like you press a button to switch them out.
Could be.
But
that's actually an interesting thought.
Yeah.
That I'll be thinking of that.
Yeah. Yeah, it would probably be fun, but there are 2 things I thought about this. One, around the time of Pokemon Black, an interview came out where someone asked the question to Nintendo of why you haven't had an action-oriented system in Pokemon so far. And his response was, the reason they went with a turn-based system was that they wanted a system that was easier for younger gamers to get used to, so that anyone who hadn't played a game before could sort of pick it up and then just start getting to grips with it, because Pokemon and other turn-based games in general are just the simplest games to get to grips with. If you haven't played that many games before, you just pick an option and see what happens.
Yeah, it's kind of like turn-based versus real-time and strategy games. Fire Emblem is a whole lot easier to understand than StarCraft.
I haven't played StarCraft, but I'll take your word for it.
I have someone who has, and I've pretty much got a good idea of it.
It may not be very exciting, but it is kind of easier for people to get used to. I mean, yeah, they probably could adjust to an action system, but that said, it does take a while for people to get to grips with that type of systems. I mean, whenever I've introduced someone to Smash Brothers, it does take a while before they understand all the controls and how to use all the moves and what's effective against what, etc. Mind you, the gap between experienced and newbie, it develops in the turn system anyway, especially when you bring the bloody EVs into it and all that garbage.
Oh god, yes. Let's not get into that for fear of me ranting.
Yeah. Also, the second point, this was just occurred to me because I had seen this question and I was thinking about it, and then suddenly I realised something. There's a reason why you aren't taking control of the Pokemon in the heat of the battle, because generally you're controlling the guy who shouted the orders. You're not actually fighting with them. It's basically like saying, I want to control all Ike in Fire Emblem. Well, you're meant to be the strategist. You're directing them in battle. You're not supposed to...
And besides, you have Brawl for that.
Yeah,
anyway.
It's true. But yeah, you get my point. Generally, the whole point of Pokemon is that you're meant to be the guy shouting orders to the animals. You're not supposed to be controlling them from the battle. Otherwise, the Pokemon trainer is the guy just standing there and occasionally pulling them back, saying, "Yay, I did something."
Kind of takes the player character out of the equation.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's kind of like horse racing in that sense. I mean, yeah, the horse is pretty fast, but the jockey's still the one that's actually in control of it, you know?
Yeah, you can't just let the horse go and say, well, there you go on.
Indeed. So, actually, if you do want an idea of what a sort of action-based Pokemon battle system would be like, try it and download Pokemon Rumble, or at the very least, try and download the demo of it. I think that's still up. I haven't checked Wii Shop for a long time, but if you download that, you do get a pretty good idea, because Pokemon Rumble is essentially a Pokemon... I'm not sure what you call this type of game's brawler, is it? It's basically like a God of War of Pokemon, essentially.
That's interesting.
Minus the quick time events, all the blood and gore, I should probably point out in retro.
Well, I kind of expected the latter one. I don't exactly know why, but I did.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but you do not get to see Pikachu rip a Charizard's neck off. I'm sorry, but...
Yeah, I know the people who are clamoring for, say, PG-13 Zelda are disappointed by that, but...
Oh, dear. Yeah, test out Pokemon Rumble. Or, actually, I was going to say this till the E3 discussion, but I might as well bring it up here since it's related. For some reason, they've announced a 3DS sequel for it. You may be able to get that when it comes out.
Well, that's useful information to know if I ever get a reason to buy a 3DS.
Yeah. So yeah, in short, could be fun, but it may be difficult for some people to learn, and it may also miss the point of Pokemon.
And moving on, our next question comes from GameCat16, and he asks,
what are your thoughts on the silent protagonist attempt to make the player feel like they're the character if it's executed properly?
Ooh, that's an interesting one.
You go ahead, because I'm properly wording my response to this.
Okay. It's a tricky one to answer. I mean, trying to think of well-done examples has been difficult because I've occasionally had issues with the whole Nintendo method, let's say, because there are times when it works. I mean, I think it may be the fact that because they haven't displayed personality elements that there aren't, say, that many people who hate Link as opposed to that many people who hate Cloud Stripe. But at the same time, it depends how you approach it, but to me, sometimes, unless it's something that's completely customizable or where you have a fully direct choice on the course of events, like, say, Pokemon, I never identify myself as the character. When I play Legend of Zelda, I always name the character Link and identify him as Link. I never see him as myself, and there's almost no point in pretending that it is, because... Don't get me wrong, The Legend of Zelda is a great game series, but there is absolutely no way to express yourself, so there's no point pretending that you are Link, because it looks like a completely different character. And there are also times, like, say, when they try to make Donkey Kong one of those protagonists, I just have to scratch my head because, well, Donkey Kong's a gorilla. You all know I'm a big fanboy of him, but he's a gorilla. I do not identify myself as a gorilla. I have seen Donkey Kong act as his own character. I do not identify myself as him.
Yeah, that's kind of an understandable mindset.
But to be honest, with the whole Legend of Zelda example, the funny thing is, they actually do a spin-off video of this because this question got me thinking about it, but the thing is, whenever I play Legend of Zelda, I always end up making my own character on the spot based on what I see from the Link, so I actually invent my own personality rather than pretending he's me, which I don't think is the actual intention at all.
Yeah, it may not have been the intention they put in the first place, but I kind of understand where you're coming from with it.
So, yeah, it's kind of interesting if it works, but most of the time, I can't really identify myself to the character. I mean, the only time it would really work is if the game's like 100% expressive, like it's about all the moral choices you make. I mean, if it was an entire game where you were constantly having to make decisions every single time about the moral decisions, who lives, who dies, etc., then yeah, fine. It's perfectly sensible for you to be the protagonist. And for example, Pokemon, I mean, yeah, you're not exactly making moral choices, but you're picking Pokemon, you're making your own squads, etc. You're winning your own battles, so therefore it's a completely customizable character. So it's a completely different situation. You really do feel like it's yours. Whereas just basically making a character silent or giving him Charles Martinelli's voice is not going to make me think I am that character.
Yeah, well, I definitely wouldn't feel like I'm the character if he has Charles Martinet's voice. Especially after his role in Skies of Arcadia, but that's another subject.
Well, we haven't mentioned any videos, so we might as well, because I'm not sure if I'll get a chance to mention it anywhere else. Yeah, Sven found a little interesting tidbit that, any of you remember in VGT the character of Rigoro, the one who I called a sick, twisted, creepy pervert? Yeah, Skies of Arcadia does occasionally have voice clips of characters in battle and cutscenes, and Charles Martinet voiced that guy.
That speaks for itself.
Yeah, the guy who voiced Mario voiced a sick, creepy pervert.
Yeah.
That's a start changing contrast, although then again, there was that one cutscene with Wario in Brawl, and oh god!
Oh god, yes. But, yeah, slowly backing away from that subject.
Yes, Red, please take over the topic, please.